Can science explain stories from the Bible? For centuries, these two worlds, faith and fact, have often seemed to be in conflict. One is built on ancient texts, spiritual belief and tradition. The other is built on observation, experimentation and evidence. Yet when we look closer, we find surprising places where they might overlap. We can journey back in time not with a time machine but with the tools of modern science. We can use geology, archaeology and even genetics to investigate the past, to see if the echoes of these ancient stories can still be heard today. Let's look at the evidence together and explore these connections. This exploration is not about proving or disproving faith. Instead, it is a journey of curiosity. Imagine yourself as a detective, piecing together clues from thousands of years ago. The Bible offers a narrative, a series of events that have shaped human history and culture. Science offers a method, a way to test hypotheses and uncover physical truths about our world. When we place these two side by side, we can ask fascinating questions. What if an ancient story about a massive flood was the memory of a real geological event? What if a tale of divine punishment from the sky was actually describing a cosmic impact? Throughout this essay, we will look at 9 famous stories from the Bible. For each one, we will first remember the story as it is told. Then, we will turn to the world of science. We will look at what geologists have found at the bottom of the sea, what archaeologists have unearthed in the desert sands, and what astronomers have discovered in the stars. We will examine the theories that scientists have proposed, from volcanic eruptions causing a series of plagues to a specific type of wind pushing back the waters of a sea. The goal is to understand the natural phenomena that could have inspired these timeless tales. This process allows us to see these ancient texts in a new light. They are not just stories, but perhaps they are also records. They might be the way that people, thousands of years ago, tried to make sense of catastrophic, awe-inspiring, and world-changing events. They used the language and understanding of their time to describe things that we now explain with scientific principles. By bridging this gap, we can appreciate both the enduring power of the stories and the incredible ability of science to reveal the secrets of the past. Could our ancient myths be a roadmap to forgotten history? The Bible tells the story of Noah and a great flood that covered the entire world. In Genesis, God instructs Noah to build a massive ark to save his family and pairs of every animal from a catastrophic flood sent to wash the world clean. For 40 days and 40 nights rain fell, and the waters rose until every mountain was submerged. It is one of the most famous stories of destruction and rebirth ever told. For a long time it was seen purely as a myth, a symbolic tale. But what if it was based on a real, though perhaps regional event that felt like the end of the world to those who experienced it? A powerful scientific theory focuses on the Black Sea. Geologists William Ryan and Walter Pittman from Columbia University proposed the Black Sea deluge theory. Their research suggests that around 7,500 years ago, the Black Sea was a smaller, freshwater lake, surrounded by farms and settlements. At the end of the last ice age, melting glaciers caused global sea levels to rise dramatically. Eventually, the Mediterranean Sea broke through the narrow strip of land at the Bosporus Strait, unleashing a torrent of salt water into the freshwater lake with the force of 200 Niagara Falls. The evidence for this theory is buried deep beneath the waves. The research team drilled core samples from the seabed and found a distinct layer of mud and freshwater mollusk shells. Above this layer, everything was saltwater marine life. Critically, all the freshwater shells dated to the same period, suggesting they all died at once in a sudden, catastrophic event, not a gradual rise in sea levels. Famed oceanographer Robert Ballard, the man who found the Titanic, later explored the area and discovered an ancient shoreline and the remains of human structures, including a building and stone tools, over 300 feet below the surface. This flood would have been a terrifying spectacle. The water level would have risen by several inches every day, submerging about 60,000 square miles of land and displacing countless people. To the inhabitants of that region, it would have seemed as if the entire world was being consumed by water. Stories of this traumatic event, passed down through generations, could easily have evolved into the grand narrative of a global flood we read in the Bible and in similar myths from cultures all over the world, from Mesopotamia to ancient Greece. Can science and ancient stories work together to reveal a shared, catastrophic memory of our ancestors? In the book of Exodus, we read about 10 devastating plagues sent by God to convince the Pharaoh to free the Israelites from slavery. These plagues included the Nile turning to blood, Frogs swarming the land, swarms of flies, the death of livestock, boils, hailstorms, locusts, 3 days of darkness, and finally, the death of the firstborn. For centuries, these have been seen as distinct, miraculous punishments. However, some scientists believe they may not have been separate events at all, but a single terrifying chain reaction triggered by a natural disaster. The story could begin with a massive volcanic eruption. Around 3,500 years ago, the Thera volcano on the island of Santorini erupted, one of the most powerful eruptions in human history. Archaeologists have found pumice from this eruption in Egypt, proving its ash reached the area. This event, combined with a period of severe drought that climate scientists have identified in Egyptian cave stalagmites from that time, could have set the stage. The drought would have made the Nile River sluggish and muddy, creating perfect conditions for the first plague, the water turning to blood. This could have been a bloom of a toxic red algae called Oscillatoria rubescens, which poisons the water and kills fish. This single event could have triggered the next plagues like a series of falling dominoes. The toxic water, the first plague, would have driven the frogs, the second plague, onto the land to escape. Without clean water, the frogs would soon die, leading to a population explosion of insects like lice and flies, the third and fourth plagues that the frogs would normally have eaten. These insects could then spread diseases like blue tongue or African horse sickness, causing the death of livestock, which is the fifth plague, and leading to boils on humans, the sixth plague. The volcanic ash in the atmosphere could have caused dramatic weather disturbances, including destructive hailstorms, the seventh plague. The chain reaction doesn't stop there. Weather anomalies caused by volcanic ash, such as increased humidity, are known to create ideal conditions for locusts to swarm, which is the eighth plague. The massive cloud of volcanic ash from the Santorini eruption could have been thick enough to block out the sun for several days, explaining the plague of darkness, the ninth. Finally, the grain stored in silos may have become contaminated by fungus and mycotoxins in the humid conditions. In Egyptian culture, the firstborn son often received double portions, meaning they would have ingested a lethal dose of the poison, leading to the tragic death of the firstborn, the 10th plague. Is it possible that a single natural disaster was interpreted as a series of divine acts? The story of the parting of the Red Sea is one of the most dramatic in the Bible. In Exodus, as the Israelites flee from the Egyptian army, they find themselves trapped at the edge of the sea. The prophet Moses raises his staff, and a strong east wind blows all night, pushing the water back and creating a path of dry land for the people to cross. Once they are safely on the other side, the waters rush back, drowning the pursuing Egyptian chariots. This event has long been considered a miracle beyond the realm of scientific explanation. However, modern science has offered a plausible natural explanation known as a wind set-down. This phenomenon occurs when a strong, sustained wind blows over a body of water, literally pushing the water to one side and exposing the seafloor. In 2010, researchers at the National Center for Atmospheric Research used computer modeling to see if this could work. They found that the Red Sea itself is too deep for this to happen, but a crucial clue lies in the original Hebrew text, which refers to Yam Suf, or the Sea of Reeds, not necessarily the Red Sea. This was a mistranslation in a later Greek version of the Bible. The researchers focused their simulation on a location that fits the Sea of Reeds description, an ancient shallow lagoon on the Mediterranean coast called the Lake of Tanis. Using archaeological records to reconstruct the landscape from 3,000 years ago, their model showed that a powerful 63-mile-per-hour wind blowing from the east for 12 hours could indeed have pushed the water back. This would have created a dry land bridge about 2 miles long and 3 miles wide. This passage would have remained open for about 4 hours, long enough for people to cross on foot. Once the wind stopped, the model showed the water would have rushed back in just as described in the biblical account. The physics of a wind set-down perfectly match the details of the story. A strong east wind that blows all night, a path of dry land appearing, and the waters returning once the wind ceases. While the Egyptian army's pursuit adds a dramatic element to the story, the core event, the parting of the water, is something that science shows is possible under a very specific set of natural conditions. Could this famous miracle be a case of natural forces aligning at just the right moment in history? The book of Genesis tells the chilling story of Sodom and Gomorrah, two cities so wicked that God destroyed them with fire and brimstone raining down from the heavens. Lot and his family were told to flee and not look back, but his wife disobeyed, turned around, and was transformed into a pillar of salt. For a long time this story was seen as a cautionary tale about sin and divine wrath. But what if it is a preserved memory of a very real and very different kind of cataclysm from the sky? Archaeologists have focused on a site in the Jordan Valley called Tal el-Hammam. During the Bronze Age this was a massive, thriving city, perhaps 10 times larger than Jerusalem at the time. As excavators dug through the layers of history, they found something startling. They uncovered a 5-foot-thick destruction layer, dated to around 1650 BC. Within this layer, everything was obliterated. They found fragments of human bones, mud bricks that had been melted, and pottery shards that had been superheated into glass, indicating a sudden blast of incredible heat. After 15 years of study, a team of 21 scientists published a paper in 2021 proposing a powerful theory. The city was destroyed by a cosmic airburst. They believe an asteroid or comet, similar to the one that exploded over Tunguska, Siberia in 1908, entered the atmosphere and detonated in the air directly above the city. The explosion would have been more powerful than an atomic bomb, instantly raising air temperatures to over 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. This explains the melted pottery and metal. The blast would have created a shockwave moving faster than the speed of sound, leveling every building in the city. The evidence also aligns with the stranger details of the biblical story. Scientists found an unusually high concentration of salt in the destruction layer. Their theory is that the airburst may have also hit the northern part of the Dead Sea, vaporizing the salty water and blasting it across the landscape. This salt-filled rain would have made the soil infertile for centuries, which explains why the area was abandoned for over 700 years after the event. This high salt fallout could very well be the origin of the story of Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt. Does this scientific evidence suggest the story of Sodom was a human attempt to explain a terrifying cosmic event? In the book of Joshua, there's a strange and puzzling story. During a battle to defend the Gibeonites, the Israelite leader Joshua prays to God to make the sun and moon stand still in the sky to give him more daylight to win the fight. The Bible says, "The sun stood still and the moon stopped, till the people had revenge upon their enemies. The sun stopped in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day." Physically, the sun stopping in the sky is impossible, as it would require the Earth to stop rotating, which would have catastrophic consequences for the entire planet. For this reason, the story has long been dismissed as pure legend. However, a pair of researchers from Cambridge University proposed a new interpretation in 2017. They suggested that the original Hebrew text might not mean the sun literally stopped moving, but that it stopped shining. This opens up the possibility that the event was not about extending daylight, but about a different kind of astronomical phenomenon, a solar eclipse. The text describes the sun and moon being in the sky at the same time, which is exactly what happens during an eclipse. Previous attempts to link this event to an eclipse had failed because researchers were only looking for total solar eclipses, where the sun is completely blocked. The Cambridge scientists, Colin Humphreys and Graham Waddington, broadened their search to include annular eclipses. An annular eclipse happens when the moon is farther away from Earth in its orbit, so it appears smaller and does not completely cover the sun, leaving a ring of fire visible. To ancient people, this dramatic darkening of the sun in the middle of the day could certainly be described as the sun stopping. Using computer simulations to track all solar eclipses visible from the region between 1500 and 1050 BC, they found only one that fits the description perfectly. It was an annular eclipse that occurred on the afternoon of October 30th, 1207 BC. This discovery is remarkable because it provides a specific, verifiable date for an event described in the Bible, potentially making it the oldest recorded solar eclipse in history. This would also help historians date the reign of certain pharaohs mentioned in other texts. Could a new translation of an ancient phrase solve a puzzle that has baffled scholars for centuries? The story of the Tower of Babel in Genesis is a short but powerful one. It describes a time when all of humanity spoke a single language and settled in the land of Shinar, or Babylon. They decided to build a magnificent city with a tower that would reach the heavens to make a name for themselves. According to the Bible, God saw this act of hubris confuse their languages so they could no longer understand each other and scattered them across the face of the earth. The unfinished tower stood as a symbol of humanity's pride. For many years, scholars have theorized that this story was inspired by the great ziggurats of ancient Babylon. Ziggurats were massive stepped pyramids built as religious temples. In 2017, a key piece of evidence came to light. Dr. Andrew George, an expert on ancient Babylon, studied a baked clay tablet or stele that had been in a private collection for a century. The tablet, dating back to the 6th century BC, clearly depicts a massive 7-level ziggurat, and standing next to it, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II. The inscription on this tablet is what makes it so fascinating. The text identifies the structure as Edamananki Ziggurat of Babylon, which means the temple of the foundation of heaven and earth. Nebuchadnezzar is quoted boasting about its construction, saying, "I made it shine like the sun," and describing its purpose to make it reach to the heavens. This language is strikingly similar to the biblical description of a tower intended to reach the heavens. The materials mentioned, bitumen and baked brick, also match the biblical account perfectly. Perhaps the most compelling connection is the description of the workforce. The inscription states that Nebuchadnezzar mobilized peoples from the Upper Sea, the Mediterranean, to the Lower Sea, the Persian Gulf, the distant lands, and the teeming peoples to build the Great Tower. This confirms that the construction project involved a massive, multilingual workforce, likely made up of captives from the many nations Babylon had conquered. This historical reality of a place filled with people speaking dozens of different languages, all struggling to work together on one project, provides a perfect real-world basis for the story of the confusion of tongues. Is this ancient tablet a direct historical confirmation of the tower that inspired the biblical tale? The story of Adam and Eve in Genesis describes the creation of the first man and woman, the parents of all humanity. They lived in the Garden of Eden until they were expelled, and from this single couple, all the people of the world are said to be descended. For a long time, this idea of a single founding pair seemed to be in direct opposition to the scientific understanding of evolution, which involves large populations evolving over millions of years, not just two individuals. However, discoveries in genetics have added a surprising new layer to this conversation. Science has its own version of a first pair, known as Y-chromosomal Adam and mitochondrial Eve. These are not the first humans, but rather the most recent common ancestors from whom all living humans descend through their paternal and maternal lines respectively. Y-chromosomal Adam is the man whose Y chromosome has been passed down to every male alive today. Mitochondrial Eve is the woman whose mitochondrial DNA, passed only from mother to child, exists in every single person on Earth. Initially, scientists believed they lived tens of thousands of years apart. However, revised studies in 2013, using a much larger and more diverse set of DNA data, dramatically changed the timeline. The new research concluded that Y-chromosomal Adam and mitochondrial Eve likely lived around the same time and in the same region of Africa. While they were not the only people alive, a unique series of events and lineage die-offs meant that their specific genetic markers are the only ones that survived in an unbroken chain to every person today. This brings the scientific timeline much closer to the concept of a single ancestral pair. Furthermore, scientists make a distinction between genetic ancestry and genealogical ancestry. While we may not all share genes from a single couple who lived just a few thousand years ago, it is statistically almost certain that we are all genealogically descended from them. A 2004 study in the journal Nature showed that the most recent common ancestor for all living humans could have lived as recently as just a few thousand years ago. This means there could have been a real couple, like the biblical Adam and Eve, from whom everyone on Earth is descended, even if their genes did not pass to all of us. Does this genetic and mathematical evidence open a door for a historical Adam and Eve to exist alongside evolution? The very first chapter of the Bible begins with a bold and profound statement. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It describes a sequence of creation, starting from a state of darkness and formlessness, followed by the appearance of light, the separation of waters, the formation of land, and eventually, life. For much of scientific history, the prevailing view was that the universe was eternal and unchanging. The idea of a definite beginning, a moment of creation, was seen as a purely religious concept, not a scientific one. Then came the Big Bang Theory. In the 20th century, observations by astronomers like Edwin Hubble showed that galaxies were moving away from us, meaning the universe was expanding. If you rewind that expansion, everything must have started from a single, incredibly hot and dense point, a singularity. This theory posits that the universe had a definitive starting point about 13.8 billion years ago. This scientific conclusion that the universe had a beginning aligns perfectly with the very first verse of Genesis, which speaks of a moment of creation out of nothing. The Bible's sequence of creation also has interesting parallels with the scientific model. Genesis states, "Darkness was over the surface of the deep before God says, 'Let there be light.'" The Big Bang model describes the early universe as an opaque, super-hot plasma where light could not travel freely. It wasn't until about 380,000 years after the Big Bang that the universe cooled enough for atoms to form, allowing photons to be released and light to finally shine across the cosmos. The biblical order of darkness preceding light mirrors our scientific understanding. Another striking parallel is the idea of an expanding universe. The Bible, particularly in books like Isaiah, Psalms, and Job, repeatedly uses phrases like God stretching out the heavens. The Hebrew verbs used can imply both a completed action in the past and a continuous, ongoing process. This fits remarkably well with the modern cosmological model, a massive initial inflation event at the Big Bang, a finished action, that set in motion the continuous expansion we still observe today, which is an ongoing action. Some Bible stories might be based on real events and science helps us learn the truth. What do you think?